So thank you very much for coming, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Kyara Perkins. Hi, welcome.
How are you? Thank you, Robin. Kyara.
Kyara. Oh, I emailed her trying to sound it out phonetically. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. I hope everyone is having a splendid day. I just want to say hello to all of the panelists. Hello to our sponsors and all of our collaborating team. It's amazing to be here again. I just quickly want to just touch bases on what the objective of this discussion is. So we're starting our title, The Familiar Art of Passion, of Profit-Making Passions. This particular conversation is dear to my heart because here in New York City, we are tuning in from actually in the different parts. But if I'm not mistaken, I think a lot of us are currently in New York City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, we're all in New York City.
Jersey.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a little difference, but you know, bringing something a little, you know, little flavor. So yeah, this conversation will highlight how women of diverse backgrounds venture their unique passions to attract opportunities that can create profits. In this discussion, we will also explore the different processes and praxis that are commonly incorporated when turning a simple passion to a successful profit. This discussion will touch on topics such as pros and cons of small business ownership, entrepreneurship, stages of personal development, obstacles that may arise during those time periods. And I think all of us could really attest to that experience. But it'll give us the opportunity to really dive in. And really the focus is, how do we create, grasp our craft and be able to create a profit or just monetize on it as altogether, right? So I think this is going to be a really good conversation. If we could start just to introduce ourselves, Jay Rose, if you would like to go, then we can head over to Chioma and Andrea. I'm just following the order.
Sure. No worries. Well, I'm Jay Rose. I'm a spoken word artist, host, and curator, as well as a teaching artist from Queens. I've been writing for over 20 years. I've been performing spoken word for 8 years and curating, hosting events for about the same amount of time, 8 years. I currently run events in Brooklyn and Queens and basically anywhere. But recently, I really started spending more time in like the teaching artist part of my life. And I conduct weekly workshops in Rikers Island with incarcerated women ages 16 to 26. They have them mixed with the adults as well. So the adults, join the workshops also I don't tell them that they can't. And I also run poetry workshops in elementary schools and high schools in the Bronx. So that's really a major part of my life right now. And I'm really excited to really dig into a lot of these conversations about making money, because I'm a professional artist. I don't work for anyone else. I work for myself. And if there's any insight I can share on how to get there, I'm happy to.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Chioma. I am a licensed realtor and founder of Connective Resolutions, which is a staffing agency that connects job seekers with the ideal dental jobs in the dental tech and trade space. I also help businesses build diverse and inclusive environments that results in high retention, less turnover, and high performing teams. Sorry. Yeah. Andrea, that was
Hey y'all, my name is Andrea, fondly known as the Poetic Black Girl by my friends in the poetry community. I'm the founder of a community-based organization called Poetic Black Gurl LLC, where we work with different schools, nonprofits, and corporations leading art-based wellness workshops to students and staff. And the goal is to always help individuals create more time and space to emphasize mental health and wellness. And I'm also an author, we love the literary arts. We love all of that jazz. And like J. Rose, I'm now in the space of being a teaching artist. So not just, sharing my own works, but helping others curate their own individual works that help them tell their own stories and work through their own mental health journeys. And it's a very, therapeutic and fulfilling, process. And I'm super happy to be here and connect with you all on how to make some money. Okay.
Love it. Love the energy. So as you can see, many of us is coming from a very diverse, I am KP the intellectual, your host and moderator discussion. Many of you know, many of you may not know, I am the creative founder of Urban Confab. And what we like to do is really just open up our platform to highlight and help further develop these exact businesses, entrepreneurs, and creatives that are creating their own pods, but also remembering to keep the network flowing, that complete stream of connection. And so we come today to bring you this discussion where we are going deep into conversation with these lovely ladies and how they monetize on their crafts. So I think we could just dive right into the first question, which is, describe your passion and how you manage to turn it into a profit. To be honest, anybody, this question is up for grabs to anyone, of course. Whoever would like to grab it first, go ahead.
I'm muted. I'm like, I'll go. So yeah, I always like to say, or the way I started my organization, which is education based. So I like to say that education was always really simple and easy for me until I got to college. Okay, I feel like once I got to college, education kind of hit me with a two-piece, you know what I mean? Like I went from a very diverse high school into a predominantly white institution around the time we were transitioning from the Obama and Trump administration. And I came from a very liberal environment. So I realized that a lot of my educators and a lot of my peers were Trump supporters, right? And they were extremely conservative. So I was hearing conversations and verbiage that made me feel very uncomfortable. I was struggling academically because the curriculum was significantly more rigorous than I was, prepared for. I was the type of student, I just had to wake up, kind of look, do a little skim of the notes and then go sit down, take the test, and it was easy for me. But that kind of didn't fly when I was in college. So I'm struggling academically, I'm struggling socially. I was struggling with anxiety. I was struggling with depression. I was struggling with mistrust. And like a lot of other first generation college students without support, I ended up dropping out and moving back home. So I moved back to the city. I was working as a waitress. I was smelling like chicken all the time. I was seeing my friends on Instagram and Facebook, just finishing up their first years. They was having their best lives. And I was like, there just has to be more than this for me. So I was always an artist. Always like to write, always like to draw, paint, stuff like that. But this was my first time using poetry to heal, pretty much. I was writing about everything I went through when I was in college. I was writing about the depression that I was going through. And it went from me just writing about my experiences to getting on stages and performing that in front of people. And I was able to really tap in with a really dope community of creatives who were also using their own individual artistic mediums in order to heal themselves, from painting and drawing to performance poetry to music to dancing and yoga. So all of that kind of inspired me to go back to school because I just love art so much. That's my passion. The passion is art. So I love art so much that I went back to school to study art education and art therapy, only for that college to kind of go bankrupt. I had like a crazy experience, y'all. And through all of that, right, through my college, going bankrupt and me transferring to leaving college back in the city, I was working at a detention facility in Brooklyn with pretty much like incarcerated youth. They had some type of run-in with the law. Some of them were stealing socks because they didn't have no clean clothes. Others were stealing food because there was no food in the house. It was a constant fight or flight. So that's when I began like kind of teaching people how to write poetry in order to tell some of their stories, and I really just fell in love with it. I wasn't getting paid much, but I loved it a lot, right? So when the pandemic happened and I was kind of displaced from education yet again, I decided to just start my own organization in order to independently lead arts-based wellness workshops with different organizations. So that's kind of how I was able to monetize my passion of the arts and poetry and education and turn it into a lucrative business where I was able to not say like, hey, what are you paying for this position? And pretty much saying, okay, this is my rate and let's go from there. So yeah.
That's right.
I love that point that you make. And in my opinion, from what I understood from what you just shared, was like you kind of maximized on the environments that you were in. So you didn't take for granted for wherever, the university have brought you. You made sure to, I had a professor that used to say this thing where it's like, you're adding to your, what did she call? Your personal toolbox. And it's like it's like the little box that you're building with all the little tools that you might need. And then, you knowing also when to utilize that and put that into play and apply. So I think that's like a really good, like, something really powerful to highlight, because many people find themselves in situations or environments and don't feel like they serve them at that moment. And maybe, missing out on the benefits that they could be gaining from it had they stayed focused, and not lose sight of that vision. So I love that you even go into that. Speaking of speaking of environments, J. Rose, if you could go, as somebody who knows how to really set a vibe and just maximize the space, I would love for you to get deep into your craft, particularly with the Rose Garden.
With the Rose Garden, yes. Well, my passions, I feel like, I was looking at this question for a long time when we, before this, and I was just like, my passion just so happens to also be my part of my purpose in life. And I think that that's why this works so well for me, because I went to school to be a teacher. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a teacher or a social worker, but I knew that I wanted to work with young people. So I majored in biology, I minored in psychology. And, recently I was kind of felt down on myself, like, damn, I never really did anything with all this schooling that I did. And, I'm not teaching. And I had to have a moment to step back and be like, yes, you are teaching. It just doesn't look like the way I thought it was going to look, 10, 15 years ago when I was going to school. Mm-hmm. So, I did take some of that knowledge with me. But, my passion and my purpose is honestly to bring people together, to cultivate community. I'm getting goosebumps.
Don't you love that?
I believe that with what I do, how I serve the community is providing them space to have a voice, to be seen, to connect with others that will empower them, to empower themselves and each other, and really cultivate this like communal mentality of like, we can run this together. I was just having a conversation with a videographer that's going to be working for me, and he also runs open mics, and it's like, there's no competition here. This is an opportunity to keep money within our own community and I think that that's how we're able to like be able to grow together, right? My business is called the Rose Garden Events, and it's because there's no such thing as one flower in a garden, right? A garden, you go into a garden and there's flowers, there's different plants, there's trees, there's all this variety. And I feel like that is my purpose, to create this creative garden for people to come and explore new art. Even people that aren't creative or they think they're not creative. I can't tell you how many times people come to one of my events and are like, I wrote a poem. Like, I've never written a poem my entire life, and here's a poem. And I want to share it on the stage. And I'm like, oh my God, it took me 16 years to write and get on stage, and you did it in 16 minutes and you're down to just get up there. Like, that's amazing. And just seeing even the work in Rikers, like the young women who are like, I never wrote before until J. Rose started coming here. And I'm like, you wasn't even, I didn't even think you was paying attention in the workshop, because you were over there some distant corner. And meanwhile, they are tapped in. And, I think that I was able to take my passion, my purpose, and my professional background in human resources, because that's what I was doing before I said, middle fingers up to the corporate world. I'm running this. This is the moment. I was saying goodbye to my boss, and we walked away. We got into our cars and we were about to exit like the garage of the building. He pulls up next to me and he's in a Rolls Royce, and I'm in like a Kia. And I was like, and he's like, good job, today, you killed it, whatever. And I'm like, this is crazy, because I bust my ass today, right? Well, sorry, I bust my butt today, like every day, first one in, last one out, like dealing. I was in a male dominated environment, and not only was it male dominated, but it was very misogynistic and toxic, like to the point that it affected my mental health. And I'm doing all this work for what? For this person to become extremely more successful. And I can put all this energy into myself. If I'm going to put the blood, sweat, and tears, if I'm going to be the first one in and the last one out, if I'm going to have to deal with an irate customer and have to put up with somebody else's stuff, it's because it's my business. It's because I'm writing my check at the end of the day. And once I made that realization and I understood my purpose in life, like, I knew that like this is what I was meant for. And I just literally jumped off, not literally, but like I jumped off the cliff with it and was like, if this is what's meant for me, then it's gonna work out, and it's not like it worked out immediately, you know what I'm saying? I guess we can get into that in the next question, but yes.
So I think, thank you for sharing that, J. Rose. I think that was like a juicy one, because that's something that we don't always even think about in itself. Like when it hits home, close to home, as far as your job, like, now. And speaking of personally, how would I like to connect this? Something that J. Rose was saying in regards to being able to provide spaces for other people. I thought that was key for something as well that kind of ties to what Chioma actually does. And I thought that would be an amazing transition where we could kind of highlight what it is to when you are then in the environment and being able to maximize on your benefits at the moment, but also being able to open the doors for others. And I think that Chioma would have a great speak with that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And J. Rose, I can totally relate with like what you were saying as you're saying it. I'm like, yes, because like I was in the dental space for like 8 years. And first, I guess like a little background, like I didn't finish college. I got my first job as like a dental receptionist, or as like a dental assistant, but I wasn't really doing dental. Then I started like working for other offices, and eventually I guess I started like handling like billing and insurance and stuff like that for other people. And I was seeing how much these doctors were making, like, and then it's like, you guys are making how much and I'm taking home how much? It's kind of like ridiculous. It's so crazy it's so crazy because I even had to like get a part-time job with like a staffing agency, and I'll just like temp with them. And like even the agency, like one day with my story, I was temping with an office one day. And I went to the doctor to pay me at the end of the day. And she told me, I told her my rate with the agency, and she goes, "You're a very smart young lady. Like, do you know how much they're charging me for you to come work for me and how much they're paying you?" Um, and that just stayed in my head like for such a long time. And I'm like, okay, like something has to change because I can't do this forever. Like, you're doing so much work and you're not being paid enough. And it's like, on top of that, like as a Black woman, it's like you'll enter these spaces and it's like you want to set your boundaries, but it's like in setting boundaries, it's almost like you're attacking them in a way. So it's like there's always like that type of like friction always, and like you're just always uncomfortable. And it's like they know that you need the job to survive. So it's like they don't care. They make you uncomfortable because they know that you're going to stay in that environment because you need them. And so that's kind of what inspired me to create my own agency, because I kind of want to be a hub of opportunities for people, not only people that look like me, but just for everybody who are in these toxic environments that just feel stuck. I'm like a big proponent of like, if you don't like the job, it's time to go, like get another one. Like there's always going to be another job, but there's only one you. So like just having a place where you can come and say, like, I don't like where I am right now. Like, sometimes, and you know what it is too, sometimes it's like with the job, they expect you to put them on the resume. So like, of course, it's like, how are you going to, design your resume to make sure that there are no gaps, just certain things that employers already know. It's just something I'm just like, I have this skill and I've been doing this for so long and I can help other people achieve this. So that's really what my passion just comes from, wanting to create something that's my own, something that reflects my visions and values, and wanting to create a fair and inclusive workspace for everybody and give them that opportunity as well. So, yeah.
Yes, I think, yeah, it was, I meant to do the yes, but I was in my head with it. Yes, but yes, I think that, and they like just that, this first segment of the discussion just allows me to really bring back the reason why I kind of brought each and every one of you ladies on here, because I saw a commonality where there was so much diversity, but such a commonality in the sense where we were in environments, or we just took heed to our environment itself and looked at it like, hey, I don't really like how this is, or I think that it would be valuable if we added this to it. And that kind of gave a real inspiration to be able to go off and just create this new universe, in a sense, in other words. That kind of reminds me a lot of why I even began Urban Fab, because I felt like there was an ideology. Oh, thank you. There was this ideology of, pardon me, how you say it? A westernization approach to business itself. And I felt like, if we're gonna create our own community, or even take more control of our community, we had to also incorporate our own structure of how we did business. And I always found myself, I'm the type of person that, business go left, I'm going to write that review. Trust me. I'm going to write that review like it's a thesis, okay? You're going to write. It's gonna go far. I am never like, yes, references, the whole bibliography and everything, okay? And I felt like, not for nothing, we if this is something that I don't like, this is something that I should be taking more seriously. So it encouraged me to want to connect and work with other businesses and organizations to see how we can better become more sustainable in our own community, as well as just, create an alternative ideology of capitalism that we really stuck in, because it's no way around it in a lot of ways. That's a discussion we could have on another conversation. But that was, something that also inspired me. And I also wanted to take it back to the educational aspect. I feel like we all have also experienced. I think that my writing expanded specifically through the academia environment as well. I was so used to writing pieces that were basically reflectionary pieces based off of the theories that I was learning, and the perceptions that I was learning. But I think once, of course, especially in the civil rights, that civil right aspect of 2020, when we experienced the Black Lives Matter movement, even going into the defund the police movement, these were all things that just simply it touched close to home. So it was inevitable for me to not feel something. And I was encouraged by so many professors, so many mentors to just write like these are real things that's happening, right? And then it would turn into me even wanting to write about the things that I was going through within my business, and little mishaps, misunderstandings, miscommunications between myself and other collaborators. And I think that just slides right into our next conversation, which is, what are some entrepreneur pros and cons have we seen throughout our journey? I think that if I could start, just to throw it out there, personality versus professionalism, I feel like it has a space together, but I feel like it has to be separated right now. It has to be separated right now. And I think that, and I say this because in a lot of ways, it's a disadvantage when you allow your personality to just flourish too much within your business, because sometimes it just doesn't allow you to push forward within your goals. That was one kind of disadvantage that I wanted to highlight within entrepreneurship. I feel like I've seen that a lot of times, and that was one thing that made me even want to demand through businesses better customer service, better to structure and how they handle their customers with communication, so many things. So I just wanted to kind of like throw that out there to open up the conversation in a sense.
Okay.
So I know Chioma kind of spoke to that. I don't know if you want to continue, but she did bring up the aspect of just not how you say it, incorporate, not really fully considering your employees or your teammates as a whole, right?
I'm not sure what you mean about like not following. No.
So when you talked about the environments that like in the dentist in the dentist
dentist in
the dentist
industry,
how they look at you as basically being disposable.
Right.
How they treat you, it's not personal, it's professional. Right. It has and I feel like, and I brought it up because I feel like that is the kind of norm for corporate business. And as we are even trying to step into, business to a higher degree, we're sitting there trying to find our own structure. So I was just saying like that was a disadvantage
of like running your own like business, or like just being in that dentist field, like that industry. Is that what you mean?
No, just simply that happening in any environment, because it's very, I felt it's very common. And I think it has to do with that dynamic, with it not being personal, but professional.
I mean, I don't think, of course there's like professional, but it's like not, I don't know if we would like call it professional, because it's like professional with like a subtle hint of like disrespect. Professional is like respecting somebody, and who they are as a human being, first of all, And I think it comes with like, okay, we're being professional, but there's a subtle hint of like disrespectful undertone, if,
Like
if
a
that
passive
makes sense.
aggressive.
You know what? Exactly.
Right.
You know, so yeah, that's like what I would say would be like a con, a disadvantage, excuse me, in the industry. Yeah,
Mm.
for sure.
Mhm. Definitely.
Mhm.
And I know, I guess when it comes to some of the challenges that I faced during entrepreneurship, I would say like the biggest challenge has been just dealing with trauma in general, right? Dealing with my own trauma, childhood trauma, relationship trauma. I feel like all of this has affected my belief systems and how I operate in life and in business. Especially if we go to like, you know, just childhood trauma and thinking about some of our belief systems when we're growing up, right? I grew up in a household where if I asked my mama for something, she'd be like, we don't have money for that. We can't afford that. We can't do that. We can't, right? So then when you come from a we can't, you know, mentality and you want to begin building generational wealth for yourself, there are barriers where you're like, well, can I really do that? Like, am I smart enough to do that? And I feel like when it comes to a lot of, you know, young POC in inner city neighborhoods or even, you know, upstate where you don't have as much wealth as other people, you've dealt with different types of trauma. And all of this affects how you handle yourself, how you process your feelings, if you feel good with interacting with others, if you feel like people are going to accept the things that you say, and thus if people are going to accept the business ideas that you have, and if your customers are truly going to see your product or your service as valuable and want to, you know, purchase from you. And if you feel like, you know, that's not what it is, because you might suffer from imposter syndrome, although, you know, we are all worthy and we are deserving of our dreams and our deepest desires, because, you know, we've seen what God has done for others. Okay. It'd be like the most random person and they are suddenly rich for the most randomest idea ever, right? But for some reason, although we have our, you know, we have our college experience, we have our lived experience, we have our whatever, we might feel like we're not worthy of it. So we never put ourselves out there. And then we have that issue of, should we really turn our passion into a profit, right? So I feel like being able to deal with ourselves and to do the self-work when it comes to just figuring out what our traumas are, because, you know, we all kind of have them, right? So figuring out like what it is that we struggle with the most, and then figuring out what medium, and for a lot of us, it's probably writing, since this is, you know, the literary festival, right? But figuring out what medium is the best for you to actually dive into your shadow work, right? Whether it's writing or whether it's dancing or painting or whatever works for you. So that's definitely been a challenge in entrepreneurship. And that just goes back to, you are your own worst enemy, right? Sometimes we like, dang, who is it? We looking over our shoulder, like, who following us? Who attacking us? Who is it? And then it's like, girl, it was you the whole time. You're the problem, you know?
Right.
So figuring out the problems within you or the challenges within you and just like facing that. I always think that I've been my biggest problem, y'all. It's been me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right.
Am I the drama?
No, I definitely identify with that, because I feel like that's really the catalyst, like, yeah, the catalyst for my writing. It's in my experience, and usually it's the experience, the disenfranchised feelings, and I'll express that, and that, like, it goes back to me being the reason why I send the Yelp reviews.
Right.
I feel obligated to have to tell you how I feel, you know? So I definitely, I identify with that completely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rose, you was gonna say something?
I was just laughing because it's funny. It's so relatable.
Yes. And there's literally been so many challenges, right? That's just one. But I feel like also like finding a supportive tribe. I feel like when I first told my family I wanted to be an entrepreneur, oh my God. Like, they're like, you're not gonna just finish college. Like, you're not about to get a government job with benefits, you know?
Social Security, like
401k. Like my uncle will still call me and be like, despite how well I do in business, there's just that mentality of there's a certain path and a structure that you need to follow, right? So
I think that comes from like trauma from the way they grew up and how like success was so scarce back then. Like, and it was like the vision of success was like you work hard for like somebody or the government or the city or something like that for 30 years, you retire and you collect Social Security. Where like we come from a whole different generation that's really out here trying to be self-sustainable. Like
exactly. And back then you think about
we
it,
built different.
Like $1,000. We can't buy a house for the
Seriously.
same thing that y'all can get a house for now. Okay, so we're playing two different games.
You know what I'm saying? It's different.
$200 rents and stuff. Like, come on.
No,
It's not
exactly.
even.
So I think one of the main challenges, it sounds like, is the generational changes that kind of seek their way back in at times, because I felt that like man, what is his name? Strauss and Howe. I think he has I hope I said that, I hope I referenced them correctly, but it's this book that explores the different generations and what each generation's purpose was, kind of, and then you see what's a lot of the time, like what they were dealing with at different times. And so now I feel like we're in a different time where we really have a real power in changing the dynamics of this entrepreneurial structure. And I feel like that should be in itself a reason why our elders would be more willing to support us in this walk, because it's so different nowadays. Like I was just like just to dive into the conversation a little deeper, I had a couple conversations with Chioma in regards to like the housing market right now, and you know, we are seeing how it's so there's a lot of new policies being explored, and it's like I'm sorry, hold on, someone said in the comments, particularly when that system of security from 30 to 40 years ago no longer really exists. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so
That
much
part.
for that. So it's like, it's a catch 22. It's like, we're scared because we don't know, we're fearful of the unknown, but at the same time, we could be so resilient in the sense of we have the unknown. Like we're in a period of unprecedented actions. So that should be even more of a catalyst while we're, you know, pushing forward in this goal itself. But yeah, so I'm sorry. Me and before I read the comment though, Chioma and I was having a conversation about the home market, and I was even expressing with her some of my goals in regards to home ownership, and we kind of talked about like, you know, it's way different than how it was back 30, 40 years ago, and we should be able to maximize on that more than anything, right?
Right.
Exactly. But yeah, no, seriously. And I feel like that goes to another big problem or challenge that we face as entrepreneurs, which is just like, how do we make money, right? How do we actually make the money in order to be able to sustain ourselves? Because once you figure out that you don't necessarily want to work for anybody, right? I'm the type of person who always kind of had an issue with authority figures. Oh, like school safety.
Yeah.
They could get it back in the day. Like it just wasn't for me. Like I just don't like people telling me what to do. You know what I mean? So I knew that working for somebody was not going to be my story simply because it just didn't sit right with my spirit, right? But I feel like when we're in schools and we're in all of these systems, the easiest path is to work for somebody in order to get the wealth that you need in order to survive. And then you need to save little pieces of that wealth in order to, you know, live off of the rest of your life. So it's a lot of survival when it's not a lot of flourishing and being happy, right? So then when we go and we think about entrepreneurship, there aren't any clear entrepreneurship classes. Like we're recently seeing colleges offering courses on how to be an independent entrepreneur. So I think when I began my entrepreneurial journey, it was really figuring out what is the best way for me to monetize my business in order to sustain myself. And I would say that that's a lot of what I see with other newer entrepreneurs as well. And a lot of the answers that I see from that is not necessarily reinventing the wheel, because there are so many proven successful business models. You just kind of figure out what business model you want and then replicate it from somebody who has the success that you want. For example, you could sell informational courses online. You could teach workshops like J Rose. You could start a staffing agency like Chioma. You can do community organizing like me.
I think that, I mean, there's that part, that journey and figuring that out, like, can be, a hard journey, but like once you figure that out, you have to understand that there's like other paths that you have to also figure out. Like, it's great to figure out how you're going to make money, but then also you got to figure out like how are people going to know that you do what you do? How are people going to find out who you are so that they can give you their money to do what you do? So like where a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, fail or just drop the ball is like having an understanding of like what marketing and network and how important marketing and networking is. A lot of, especially in the artistic industry, like a lot of creative people are very introverted. So they're like really, it's so hard for them to like walk up to somebody and being like, hi, I do this. It's a creative thing. And I'm looking, like a lot of creative people are scared to even like talk about what they do. And, I think that that's when you have to like step into this like business mindset, and you have to understand that even though you're a creative person, you're still a business. You know what I mean? And you have to think about this in that way. Like, how am I going to market myself? Am I going to use social media? Am I going to do email marketing? Am I sliding in people's DMs? What's at like, what are the things I'm going to be doing so that people know what I do? And for me, it wasn't until I really figured it out, where it was like, one, using social media, obviously, is if anybody follows me on social media knows that like I'm on it. But it was also realizing that I had to get out there and meet people in person, because as much as my social media personality can be people like, oh, you're a vibe, I love your energy, great, but like meet me in person so you really get the energy. Like you and when people get to meet me in person, they're like, wow, like I want to work with you, like you're the same person I see online. But like all of that, creating that presence, that online presence, creating that in-person presence, and building that organic connection with people, I think that that's where I've been able to be successful and create some type of longevity in what I do, because for me, I'm just getting older, right? So like, I'm not going to be this spoken word poet on stage for like when I'm like 55, you know what I'm saying? So I had to figure something out where, what can I do that's still related to poetry, where I can still be respected and seen as an expert in this field. And I'm like, well, I can teach, and then I can build relationships with a younger generation that now have this loyalty with me because they've been rocking with me since they were young. So now all these kids, these high school students, these college students that I'm working with 10, 15 years from now, when they're really like in their real deep space of like being successful creatives, they're going to look back and be like, I remember this amazing poet or this amazing teacher or this amazing artist that came to my school or visited us here, did a workshop here. And like, if it wasn't for that, I would have never found my voice, but understanding that this is also a business, like that emotional stuff does have to be cut out. That doing business with friends, that's one of the biggest cons that I had to experience, was I lost friends because I couldn't do business with them. And for me, I took, this is my view on this before I go into this rant about this, because I'm very passionate about this particular point. Yeah. People do business with you that are your friends, and what happens is they treat you like a friend in the business relationship, where they have to understand, don't come into this business relationship and treat me like a friend, because what's going to happen is you're going to be comfortable with slacking. You're going to be comfortable with dropping the ball on things, because we're friends, right? And like, friends forgive each other, and like, friends don't get mad when they make mistakes, because we love each other. And there's like this really cool, deep relationship we have. That doesn't work with business. When you drop the ball, you fail at something, you're costing either my reputation, you're costing me money, you're costing me time. Like, if you can't take me seriously as a professional, like treat me like you're doing business with Nike, treat me like you're doing business with like a Fortune 500 company, because guess what? One day I will be a big company like that. But treat me like that. Don't treat me like I'm a friend and you could just be a friend in this business relationship. And I've lost friends, unfortunately, that I had to be like, I'm sorry, like I can't do business with you, and it's left such a bad taste in my mouth that I don't even want to be your friend no more. Like you
Yeah.
you ruined it all across the table. And that's why when like I have friends that are like personal friends for a long time and they want to do business with me, I'm like, let me connect you with somebody else that could do this, because then you're gonna take them seriously, and it helps me spread the love and the like. I will not do business with friends anymore. Like I have business relationships that have turned into friendships, right? But the foundation of that relationship is always business or something creative or something like that, that's not personal. And then we build something personal on that. That's a whole different like dynamic, that can work, because you have this fundamental respect for each other from a business standpoint from the beginning. So there's no confusing like with that friend stuff when we're working together, and when you make money with people, it's real easy to be friends, let me tell you that.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that point that you make, because it sounds like community plays a really big role in just your business model, your business structure itself.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that was one of my personal challenges, was me trying to get people to understand, like, your first customers is the community, like, and understanding that you have to make that mark with the community before you go in, and you're trying, like, that happens nowadays. When there's a new business that comes into our communities, they're going to the district board. They're asking the district board if these businesses are allowed to come through, or they're being requested at the district boards. So I think that it's really important to understand the role that community plays and the audience that you are kind of attracting when you are going into your business. And I think one part that you really made in the beginning that I completely identified with, J. Rose, was the understanding that you kind of have to have a clear understanding of what you are bringing to the community, which you will then be trying to monetize off of. But the community also has to have a clear understanding of what you are and what you represent, because that's ultimately the one thing that's going to sustain that money flow, that cash flow, and bring it as well as maintain it and sustain it. And I think that was a big challenge that I seen coming in when I started Irvington Fab. My objective was to highlight the necessity of knowing and being familiar with your community and who is bringing the businesses into the community. So I focus a lot on networking. I call them network mixers. I even did kickbacks for the creatives, because at that time, it was thriving creativity was way, way more thriving, and it was flowing so much easily just because the world stopped, like honestly speaking, in the midst of the pandemic.
Right.
And so we were like kind of desperate, especially as scholars. I was in the middle of, I believe, my junior year when it happened. And it was just like, it kind of left me in this sense of feeling lost, because I felt like I didn't have the community. I'm very much used to being a part of different community pods. And I felt like my richest community pod, which was where I went to school, we were all remote. So in distant learning. So it really, put a damper just on how interested I was in my own creativity. And I was so grateful for those environments that were being created through community at the open mics. I think it was a lot of open mics. Businesses began to even open up their space to small businesses or entrepreneurs that had some creativity and some talent to add, such as the Bronx native. Like, I will always give a big shout out to the Bronx Natives, because that's even how me and Poetic Black Gurl was able to really solidify our connection, right? Like, we knew each other through some community organizing, because in New York City, it's pretty small. Like, once you're really in the
poetry community, the artistic community.
Yeah.
But
When you
specifically the poetry community, you're gonna see the same people over and over, and you're gonna hear that piece. You're going to
yes. I hate when people be
like,
like, "Oh, you know J Rose, you know this person." I'm like, I know everybody. What are you talking about?
Yes. Yes. Very familiar.
No? And so that part was what I wanted to focus on. And then it wasn't until like 2-3 years later and recently where I was like, all right, I was able to do that. Yeah, we did create a cash flow of some sort when we did our events. I was able to create a structure where I was getting a profit. But then it also turned into, like J Rose said, the marketing. I was like, how about we try to get together some merch? That's a way that you could be selling things at your events, or you can even go and support other people's events, get the networking that you need, get some, start building, maybe even set an intention that you can later manifest, and then hop out. It's so simple. And then, of course, make sure that you execute the play completely. Don't miss any parts. Make sure you get that social media handle. Make sure you get that email contact. Get that business card. Like, whatever the case may be, you make sure you do that to solidify this connection that you've made now. So now, 3-4 years.
There's something you're saying that made me think of, like, one of the biggest things that people contributes to their failure is not being consistent. I think that, like, for me, that's definitely what's brought a lot of opportunities my way. It's just me being consistent. And it's like, despite what's going on, there's so many people that, like, it hits the fan and they're like, I need to fall back. It's like, no, you gotta, like, wipe your face, wash your hands, and let's keep it moving. Because,
oh my God,
like, there's always stuff is always gonna go left. Like, if that's what stops you, then, like, you might as well just don't do anything and just go back to whatever it is.
Rose, it's so crazy that you said that. Like, and I don't mean to, like, get spiritual at all, like religious.
Please do.
But I am. So I was listening to, like, this, I saw this video, and this woman was just talking about, like, how she was, like, fasting and praying for something that she really wanted and, like, working towards it. And, like, in doing that, like, she fasted, she prayed, and then she finally, when she was done, she's like, okay, it's gonna happen. She felt like it was gonna happen. And then she was like, something just happened, and just threw everything that she's been fasting and praying and working for, just, like, threw everything off. And she said she just wanted to get, she was depressed. She just wanted to go back to bed and just do absolutely nothing. And then it just made her think, like, that's just how the devil works. And if you're not religious, that's just how life works in general. Like, things are always going to come in to just throw you off your game. And if you're like, you have to just build that resilience, like, build that tough skin, because, like, if you're not resilient, like, something will just come and just knock you off your entire game. And, like, you just have to be able to just move forward every time, because things are just going to happen,
There are lessons. So, at the end of the day, there are things that's teaching you how to do things differently, how to move better. Like, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people look at these things as, like, that's it. This is not meant for me. And it's like, no, this is meant for you. You're just doing it wrong. So, like, here's something to throw you off track so you can kind of, like, get your stuff together and do it right the next time. And it's like, what do they say? Like, you're going to constantly face the same issues until you learn your lesson. That's how the universe, or whatever higher spiritual being you believe in, like that's just how it works. Until you learn your lesson, you're going to keep facing the same drama. Am I the drama?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hashtag, am I the drama? I love it. But no, that's so true. I think that, and I love the fact that you even brought the spiritual aspect into it, because it's something to build off of. the challenging perception, and you have to consistently challenge your perception. Like even within our entrepreneurial endeavors, you have to challenge your perception. You can't think, was she trying to play me? Somebody told you the price and she trying to play me? You know, come on. You have to evolve. And that's the one thing that I noticed is going to happen regardless. I think one question that I really did want us to kind of touch upon, right? Before we do start wrapping up, there's a very big, and everybody is open to hop on this question, but I really would love to hear how everyone feel about this. There's a big controversy, right, about what it looks like to monetize your business. A lot of times people think the actual tangible money. A lot of times people look at it that there's a spiritual value that comes into it. There's a professional value that comes into it. Even down to sometimes it's not always monetary. The transaction isn't always monetary. And I kind of wanted to hear what you all may feel about the ideology of maybe even business starting to have a shift to where we're not just looking for specifically money as an exchange, maybe bartering services at a point in time. Have you guys ever done it? How do you feel about it? Thoughts on it?
Yeah, I could take a stab at that one. I know, like, for some of the local community programming that we do, we offer free admission for other creatives who can offer their service. So like J Rose, you already know, like, just coming to the event, you leave feeling rich. You leave feeling like, oh my gosh, this is what my soul needed. Like, I needed to hear that poem. I needed to talk to that person. Like, I needed that encouragement, right? But sometimes realistically, and I know my target audience is recently a lot of younger people, right? Like college students who, like, I didn't have the space to express myself. They don't necessarily have the space to express themselves, right? Or single moms, right? Who, like, literally every dollar counts. Like, that $10 could go towards the light bill, right? Like, Con Edison is really calling, right? So if you are a single mom or you are a college student and you just so happen to have a passion for photography, you can get free admission to an event, and you will be our designated photographer for the night, or our designated videographer for the night. Or you could be our, like, one of our, hold down a vending table or a snack table, and you could just be support for the event. So that's kind of the way we've been kind of reaching out to community in order to offer like a sliding scale rate in a way, and also like have them, we appreciate your craft, and we want you to pull up and be in the space because your energy is invaluable. Like, we love it when you're here, and also we understand that tough, okay? So we can give you a free ticket for your service, and I think it's really cool. So that's one way that we've explored bartering at Poetic Black Gurl.
I kind of just wanted to piggyback off of that because I've went to a few, like, I haven't bartered with my business, but I have met a few other entrepreneurs who mentioned that they kind of like did the same thing, bartering in the sense of like using that as like a tool to help like decrease their like operation costs. Let's say like they needed like a space or something, and they know somebody who has like a space available. Let's say Jamba Juice or something has like a space and they wanted to use that to like host a workshop event. They would go to Jamba Juice and say, hey, like this would be like great exposure for your juice bar or something if you just let us host this event there. And it's a way of just like cutting down costs and stuff like that with your business. So,
yeah, I've done something similar with businesses where I make like a 1-2 item minimum where people come to the events and they have to, buy and support the establishment. I also like utilize grant money, grant funding to pay featured artists to perform or people to conduct workshops. I found a really amazing organization that I like, man, they're amazing poets and writers. They provide so much funding for so much stuff. And also, like you do, Andrea, you know, somebody who's up and coming and they're just trying to get like their feet wet, but they are talented. You know, we invite them to have space and be like our photographer for the night or like our DJ for the night. You know, and that helps me save overhead. You know, I don't have to pay the, you know, but then they get tips and they also get to, you know, there's this like elusive exposure that people talk about, you know, where for me, like there's certain platforms that I'm comfortable doing stuff for free because their exposure is actually worth it.
Wait, there's a bucket.
But then other spaces, I'm like, no, you gotta, you know, you gotta pay. So, you know, I monetize my business in that way as well. Like exposure is a way of monetizing, right? Let me go to your event and walk away with like 100 new followers, you know, like thanks. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I see that. I'm so happy that you guys all had something so different to share with that, because that just expands on the idea that, you know, money, the concept of money is very, it's so not absolute. Put it like.
And I have another one, if I may.
Yeah.
In the workshop space, like if you ever, you know, some nonprofit organizations, they might want you to do a workshop and they can't necessarily pay you to do a workshop. I guess like a way I found around that would be bartering is, instead of asking them for money, you would ask them for 2 to 3 referrals. And to those referrals, they can't really mention that you did this work for free. So 2 to 3 referrals that will actually pay you. And that's a good way to like expand your network. Yes.
Yes. And you can, if you have a business, you can actually invoice them still, right? But instead of putting it as like a service, you put a donation of services. So if it's if they're a nonprofit organization, you could write that as a business expense because you donated your services.
Dropping the sauce.
Come on, T.
Just a little more, you know, and then you hit them with give me some referrals, let me make some money, you know, and yeah, I love that.
Definitely. No, that is so dope. That is super dope. And I'm so happy to hear that you guys are, again, expanding on the community and keeping up with what's going on around us and what type of funding is out there, or just how much diverse resources are being provided, and knowing how to use that and apply it to where it works in your favor, within your path, within your industry. So I love that. Just to bring the conversation in for wraps, I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. I feel like it was such a juicy conversation. Particularly, I want to give everybody an opportunity to just share some upcoming events that you might have coming up, or any, right? I wish too. If there's any upcoming events or announcements you guys want to share, as well as if you have any links, please drop them into the chat so that anybody in all of our participating audience could get connected with you all and stay connected. I would love for us to be able to build off of the networking and kind of continue the bridge of connecting communities.
Yes, so upcoming events. So if anybody wants to take a gander into the city in the Bronx, at Williamsbridge Oval Park on May 13th, we're having a Mother's Day event. So it's going to be a writing workshop called Dear Mama, where we're writing letters to our mothers and our maternal figures. And there's going to be raffles, there's going to be giveaways. We're also going to be writing like just letters to mothers in need as well. So people who are in really tough situations. And we also have a monthly open mic coming up. We throwing in a karaoke because why the hell not? Okay. Yeah, I'll drop my link in the chat, and I'm excited to support everyone else's event as
Amazing.
I'm recovering. But you know, I think they dropped my website in the chat, but we're just always hiring. And I'm also going to drop my email. So if you want to just send over a resume, you want to reach out to us, or you're even looking to hire, yeah, just always, we're here. We're here.
And also people can email me. And you know where to find me on springrights.org if you want anybody's email. And
Yes.
you don't say the chat.
Email us.
I just want one of the
Yes.
things I really picked up on from the conversation was to find somebody else who's doing, someone you admire, and just see what they're doing, because a lot of artists, they do work in isolation, and they have a real fear of asking for what they need,
Mm.
and a fear of setting prices that are good prices, for their artwork or for their services. And you just have to do it. That's the advice. Just do it.
That is the advice.
Dive in and do it. But I just like the idea of like, oh, whose website do I like? Who's doing,
Mhm.
who do I
Right.
admire? Let me see what they're doing, because I think a lot of people, they don't know where to start.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I host a monthly open mic in Brooklyn. If anybody wants to join us, it's every second Friday. This summer we'll be featuring artists like Brandon Leak, Queen Sheba,
Wow.
some really, really big names. I have a huge showcase coming up in October, so stay tapped in. This is going to be one of the biggest lineups you'll probably see in poetic history right now. I will be dropping a poetry album this year and a book to go with it. And if anyone knows any opportunities to come in and facilitate workshops that revolve around spoken word, poetry, performing, mostly workshops that address community issues. I also have workshops about self-love, but it's the community issues that I find the youth are really, really receptive to, because they get excited about having a voice. So if anybody knows any opportunities like that, please reach out to me via email or Instagram. I'd be happy to join and help our youth.
Right. Awesome. Okay, I think that does give us a
Oh,
wrap.
I'm sorry. Like one thing, I just wanted to like shamelessly plug like my real estate business in there. I just added my Instagram. So if you're ever looking to buy here in Jersey or Pennsylvania, or if you just need some information on the market, please do not hesitate to reach out to me as well.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So this was taped, so it's going to be on springrights.org. So we can
Amazing.
share it with people.
Oh my God.
And
Amazing.
and I'm starting a professional development workshop series. It's something that we were doing before the pandemic, and then it just kind of dropped away. But we want to redo it, and maybe you guys can come in on Zoom, because we're 250 away.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
If you need anything on social media, marketing or
Oh God, yes.
management, let me know, because I do workshop. Didn't even talk about that stuff. I do that also.
We totally, yeah, I need that. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having
Thank
us
you
tonight.
for having us.
Coming.
Bye. And have the rest of the festival.
Oh yeah, the rest of the festival.
Yes.
All right.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for having us. Bye.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.